Dear Level 1 students, welcome to the fifth lecture of Introduction to Accounting 1 course. In the last lecture, we talked about the accounting cycle and we learned analysis of business transactions and record in the journal. In today's lecture, we will learn how post to ledger accounts. We talked about the steps of accounting cycle, which consist of analysis, recording, and summarizing. Step number 1 in the accounting cycle, analyze business transactions. Step number 2, recording process. We can analyze transactions according to the accounting base to determine effects on the account. And we can classify the elements or concepts that we mentioned in the conceptual framework to debit and credit accounts. So assets and expenses are debit accounts, and if they increase, that will record in the debit side and amount in the debit column. While if they decreased, that will record in the credit side and amount in the credit column. So while liabilities, owners' equity, and revenues are credit accounts, and if they increased, that will record in the credit side and amount in the credit column. While if they decreased, that will record in the debit side and amount in the debit column. Step number 3, transfer the journal information to the appropriate accounts in the ledger or T account. The third step in the accounting cycle is posting to the ledger or transfer to T account. Transferring journal entries to the ledger account is called posting. This phase of the recording process accumulates the effects of journalized transactions into the individual accounts. Posting involves the following steps. Step number 1, post to debit account, date, journal page number, and amount. أول حاجة نعمل post للديبت account, record date, journal page number, and amount وقيمة. Step number 2, post to credit account, date, journal page number, and amount. Journal page number and amount. We talked in the previous lecture about this example and learned the recording business transactions in the Ali journal. Funbark was started on May 1, 2020 by Ali. The following selected events and transactions occurred during May. Transaction number 1, May 3, Ali invested £90,000 cash in the business. Transaction number 2, May 10, purchases land costing £20,000 for cash. Transaction number 3, May 16, received £10,000 in cash, admission fees, services revenue. Transaction number 4, May 21, paid advertising expenses of £5,000 pound cash. Transaction number 5, May 26, withdraw £1,000 land for personal use. And transaction number 6, May 30, received £32,000 pounds in cash, admission fees, services revenue. Required, journalize the transactions. Number one, journalize the transactions. Number two, post to ledger accounts, T account. Transfer to ledgers. First step, analyze transactions and the recording in the journal. Feinberg was started on May 1, 2020 by Ali. The following selected events and transactions occurred during May. Transaction number one, May 3, Ali invested £90,000 cash in the business. Invested الكاش increase, cash normal balance assets, normal balance debit, increase, a record in the debit side. From cash, £90,000 in the debit column. Invested 90,000 cash in the business, capital, owner equity, increase, capital, owner equity, normal balance credit, capital increase, a record in the credit side and amount in the credit column. Transaction number 2, May 10, purchases land costing £20,000 for cash. Purchases land, fixed assets, assets, normal balance debit, increase, a record in the debit side and £20,000 in the debit column. Costing £20,000 for cash decrease, cash normal balance debit, no assets, decrease, a record in the credit side and amount in the credit column. The record purchased land for cash. Entry number 3, transaction number 3, May 16 received £10,000 in cash, admission fees, services revenue. Received £10,000 cash, الكاش normal balance debit, no asset, increase, a record in the debit side and amount in the debit column, 10,000. Cash, admission fees, services revenue. Services revenue, normal balance revenue, normal balance credit, increase or recognition revenue, a record in the credit side, services revenue, and amount in the credit column. Explanation, the entry, the record received cash for services provided. Transaction number 4, May 21, paid advertising expenses of £5,000 cash. Advertising expenses normal balance debit. لما يعملوا recognition or record, a record in the debit side, amount 5,000 in the debit column. Paid, الكاش decrease, الكاش normal balance debit لأنه assets. Record cash in the credit side, £5,000. Explanation, entry number 4, the record paid advertising expenses. Transaction number 5, May 26, withdraw £1,000 land for personal use. withdraw expense, increase normal balance debit, record in the debit side, amount in the debit column 1,000 pounds, land assets, fixed assets, normal balance debit, decrease, record in the credit side and amount in the credit column, explanation entry, the record withdraw, land, the record withdraw, land, مش cars دي land for personal use. Withdraw land, the record withdraw land for personal use. May 30 received 32,000 pounds cash admission fees, record cash received, cash increase, cash normal balance debit and assets, record in the debit side and amount in the debit column, services revenue increase or recognition, a record in the credit side, amount in the credit column. Explanation, the entry, the record received cash for services provided. Interest طبعا number 1, date 3, number 2 10, number 3 16, number 4 21, number 5 26, and number 6 30 May. After recording the transactions in the journal, transfer them to the general ledger. You must post every transaction from your journal into the ledger or T account. The ledger is the book of final entry. You use the ledger to organize and classify transactions. Each journal entry is moved into an individual account. The line items are called ledger entries. Transfer the debit and the credit amounts from the journal to the ledger account. After posting entries to the general ledger, calculate the balance of each account. Number 1, calculate the balance of an assets or expenses account by subtracting the total credits from the total debits. Number 2, calculate the balance of a liability or equity account by subtracting the total debits from the total credits. Okay, transfer or post to ledger account. Cash, left side debit, right side credit. Number 1, we look for the account in the journal for the cash account. هنعمل search على الكاش، هو فين ده T account cash، نعمل search على الكاش في الانترز. entry number 1 cash record in the debit side, okay, amount in the debit column, a transfer to ledger in the debit side, amount debit column, a record in the debit side, 90,000 capital, تاريخ date May 3. Entry number 2 land to cash cash record in the credit side, amount in the credit column 20,000 pound, a transfer to credit side 20,000, land, date May 10. Entry number 3, cash record in the debit side, amount in the debit column, transfer to debit side 10,000, services revenue, date May 16. Entry number 4, advertising expenses to cash. Cash record in the credit side, amount in the credit column, transfer to credit side 5,000, advertising expenses. Date 21 May 21. Entry number 6, drawing land. في كاش؟ مفيش كاش. Entry number 6, entry number 5, drawing land, مفيش كاش. Entry number 6, cash to services revenue, cash record in the debit side, amount in the debit column. Okay, يبقى transfer in the debit side 32,000, services revenue, date May 30. Okay. Any entry في كاش خلاص يبقى عملت transfer للكاش record in the debit side, transfer in the debit side of the account. Record in the credit side cash, transfer to credit side الاماونت الخاصة بالايه بالكاش. يبقى انا عملت transfer number 1. number 2 نعمل closing the entry closing the account. اعمل فايل للاكونت. هنعمل calculate debit side 90,000 plus 10,000 plus 32,000 100 and 32,000 total debit side. Credit side 20 plus 5,000 25,000 total credit side. Important note: after addition the accounts in each side, we put the largest value debit side. Okay, a largest value in the two sides to determine the remaining value, which is the balance of this account. The largest value debit side, okay, a record total the debit side and the credit side. remaining الفرق 1032 minus 25 equal 107,000. Okay, remaining 107,000. Okay, يبقى record remaining in the credit side 107,000 debit balance. Cash assets normal balance debit. لازم البالانس بتاع الاكونت او تي اكونت يكون ديبت. اوكي. طب بوست تو ليدجر كامبل اسف سوري بوست تو ليدجر عالي كابيتال. نعمل سيرش entry number 1 cash to capital record in the credit side 98,000 in credit side amount in credit column by record in the credit column 9,000 cash date May 3 in account record capital مفيش. اعمل ايه؟ اعمل close the account debit side 0 credit side 9,000 record largest amount 9,000 remaining 9,000 credit balance credit 9,000 debit side 0 remaining credit 9,000 Boost to ledger or T account land fixed assets يعني assets النورمال بالانس ديبت. هنعمل سيرش على اللاند في الانتريز. entry number 1 cash to capital مفيش land. entry number 2 land to cash land record in the debit side in the entry land record in the debit side amount in the debit column transfer to the debit side in the ledger 20,000 cash date 10 May 10 عندنا land record in transactions number 5 land record in the credit side amount 1,000 in the credit column land the credit column transfer to credit side 1,000 drawing date May 26 any account أو any entry في قيد في land خلاص يبقى أنا عملت ترانسفير للترانزاكشن نمبر 2 الريكورد land فيها وعملت ترانسفير للترانزاكشنز نمبر 5 اللاند فيها ريكورد in the credit side. اوكي نعمل calculate هنجمع debit side 20,000 سوري اسف 20,000 اوكي والcredit side 1,000 largest debit side 20,000 credit side 20,000 remaining 19,000 debit balance يعني النورمال بالانس لللاند ديبت. اوكي البالانس بتاع التي اكونت اللاند البالانس ديبت. Post to ledger services revenue entry number 1 cash to capital number 2 land to cash number 3 cash to services revenue okay the service revenue record in the credit side amount 1,000 pounds in the credit column transfer to credit side 1,000 sorry 10,000 cash, date May 16. Advertising expenses to cash, drawing to land, cash to services revenue. Record services revenue in the credit side, amount in the credit column, transfer to credit side 32 cash, date May 30. Any entry record services revenue. عندي transactions number 4 number 3 and transactions number 6 record in A and credit side. Calculate debit side equal 0, credit side equal 42. Largest credit side 42 in the credit side, 42 in the debit side. Remaining 42 credit balance. Services revenue normal balance credit. البالانس خاص بالتي account لازم يكون credit balance. Post to ledger advertising expenses normal balance debit. روح للentries cash entry number 1 cash to capital, number 2 land to cash, number 3 cash to services revenue, number 4 advertising expenses to cash. Okay, يبقى record advertising expenses in the debit side, amount 5,000 in the debit column, يبقى transfer to the debit column 5,000 pound cash, date 21 May. Any transactions or any entries recording the advertising expenses هو entry واحد بس transactions number 4. okay, calculate credit side and debit side. Credit side 0, debit side 5,000. largest debit أكبر من credit side, record total debit side 5,000 and credit side 5,000. the remaining balance 5,000 debit balance. ليه؟ لأن expenses debit normal balance debit لازم الرصيد بتاعه البالانس يكون debit side أكبر من credit side. drawing opposed to ledger drawing T account drawing. record in the transactions number 5, date May 26. record drawing in the debit side, amount in the debit column. okay, but transfer to the debit side 1,000 in the debit side, land, withdraw land, date 26 May. any entries في equate في land initial transactions number 5. okay, نعمل closing للأكاونت. debit side 1,000 sorry, debit side 0, credit side 0, debit side 1,000. okay, and debit side largest أكبر من credit side, a record in the debit side and the credit side 1000, a record remaining 1000 debit balance. drawing expenses debit balance قلنا ليه direct relation between capital. Thanks for your listening, and I am waiting for your questions about the lecture and meet you in the next lecture.